So I was driving down in San Antonio Monday. I passed two public works crews.
Yeah.
No flags, no signage, just blocking the street. Two of them. Two separate locations. Wow. Ice do such a good job.
Horrible. Liability.
I mean, literally, you come right around the corner, it's like at a dead stop.
Yeah.
No
Sometimes,
way.
when's the last time you've been out to your Stinson Airport? You go down there? We got the mission up on the bike trails. You're pretty familiar with that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. Excuse me,
Sorry.
I'm calling a meeting to order at 6:30 p.m. We'll be going through regular agenda items. 2A, discussion and possible action regarding strategic planning, development of city council priorities, and the possible creation of city council subcommittees to further review, research, and provide recommendations on complex issues, upcoming legislative matters, and other city priorities. Make note that Zach Brown, councilman in place number 4, is not present, and neither is Christopher Goff, councilman in place 6. Okay. All right. So we're going to start this with you. We'll let you start, Joe.
The goal today would be to develop a plan for subcommittees, right?
Yes.
So, from my perspective, looking at the needs and kind of trying to narrow it down to, what's a realistic goal and achievable goal. One of the things that interests me is, looking into our comprehensive plan, which ties into a lot of the zoning and, the ordinances that we have in place for subdivision ordinances, looking at the building infrastructure, ordinances that involve, kind of the master planning of the community, and just seeing how I think it's an important role. I don't think we can, accomplish everything potentially on that for, depending on the times that we meet, but that will always be an ongoing, to me, that's an ongoing thing that interests me to get involved in. So I think that's to me a good identification of a subcommittee. We've also had some interest in like the legislative subcommittees, so keeping up with, legislative subcommittees. So I think if we keep it at a level like that, and then potentially form a subcommittee, and then from there branch on. It's kind of what I was thinking, just to where we're not getting so linear. Like I want to be on roads. That's all I want to do. For example, where we're talking at a level to go from there. That's just kind of my thoughts for now. So with your council, that's what I think about that as well.
Do we have any response to Councilman Alexander?
Mayor, if I could interject something very quickly. I had intended to have Danny give a very brief presentation regarding sales tax. I wanted to kind of frame things up tonight as we go down the road. There's not really a presentation per se. It's one map, but it's a discussion about our sales tax situation and how that bears on revenue for the city. And what brought this about is as we were going through listening to the various committees over the past several months, and really just the interviews that we had a couple weeks ago for our committees, I think there's a lack of understanding in the community as to how constrained we are with respect to sales tax. So I realize that council members, you're probably aware of this, but I found that he wrote a presentation to the planning and zoning, and I found that presentation to be just very clear. Hopefully we've got folks watching at home tonight, and they can benefit from this also. So let me beg your indulgence, Mayor. It's about maybe a 5-minute presentation at most.
So do we want to do that now in between the comments? Is that
I
what
think
you're asking?
I think we do, and it's my mistake for not leading out with that and mentioning it a few minutes earlier. But I think that may shed some light or spark some ideas on the part of council in terms of what you all would want to see for your possible committees and subcommittees. So I think it'll be instructive, and I think it really puts things into their proper perspective in terms of what we can and cannot do. So, Mayor, again, with your indulgence, it's your meeting, but I would like
So
to.
we'll put a pause on 2A on this discussion,
Okay.
and we'll have Danny come up and do his presentation of the sales tax.
Of course, this is going to have a big impact on our ability to carry on other strategic projects. So as soon as that comes up, I'm apologize if any of you know this information already, but the city of Bulverde only collects sales tax from its original incorporation boundary. You'll see that on the map here, the light blue area. Because sales tax is capped at 2% locally, when we incorporated in 1997 and put our tax in place in 1999, the county and the library district each had a cent. The city of Bulverde adopted 1 additional cent, taking all the available 2 cents for local jurisdictions. In the early 2000s, the emergency service districts incorporated or implemented their own sales tax that didn't apply inside the then city limits because it's a first come, first serve thing. Whoever gets there first gets it, whoever gets there second gets nothing. When we later began our annexation program, what you see on the map here is broken down into the sales tax boundary, which is the original city limits. What I call revenue opportunity zones, the green areas, are undeveloped parcels that are in our sales tax boundary, and we would receive sales tax revenue from those properties. And then the orange areas are what I call revenue challenge zones. Those are areas basically that were annexed mainly during the 2015 to 2019 era when we did that. And we were never received any sales tax money from any of these areas unless the law changes, which is not likely. The purple zones are within our boundary, but are so small, they'll either produce very little or they'll end up being parking lots of drainage infrastructure and won't produce anything either. Historically, when the city was first formed and in its first years, the sales tax was larger than the property tax. And for many years, we avoided raising the property tax and bought it down with our sales tax revenues. As our city has grown, that has now reversed. Since 2023, property tax has taken over or has become a larger portion of the city budget. And sales tax is at a ceiling. It's not, we shouldn't expect, except for inflation, significant growth in that number in the future, unless we can maximize these few green zones and get some high sales tax producing numbers there. So as development occurs in the orange areas, because of the new laws restricting how we can raise the property tax, we no longer have the flexibility to accommodate those stagnant sales tax numbers by raising the property tax. And of course, when we raise property tax, we have to raise taxes on everybody, including homeowners. It doesn't apply differently to commercial and residential properties. So there's a lot of pain when we have to potentially raise taxes to serve these orange areas. That's going to fall disproportionately on our homeowners in the city. So when people come in and say, developers, and say, we need more businesses, we need to expand in these orange zones, the city council, planning and zoning, the citizens should understand that that's almost certainly a net negative revenue proposition for the city. And I don't think a lot of people understand how much of the city limits is in these revenue challenge zones. And so I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I wanted to make sure to get this information out there. I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
You don't have any questions on this?
No, I saw the report that you wrote for P and Z. It was terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah, very well said.
Thank you, Dan.
Thank you, Dan.
So to reiterate one of Danny's points, when we do have commercial development, and I'm specifically thinking about one big box retailer who's been wanting to relocate to the city for a number of years, when we do have commercial development with that one big box retailer, it will most certainly siphon business away from
Yes.
our
Understood.
revenue.
Yes.
That's not a reason to say no or cloud it. We can't do that. We're going to be legal in all aspects. But these are folks that come to us and say, we'd like an incentive to come to your city. You're going to kill our sales tax by coming to our city. You're going to increase traffic. You're going to do horrible things for us. And you're asking for some kind of an incentive.
Mhm.
What can you do for us?
And in the orange zones, there is no incentive. Even if-
So again, all of this just to say, there's not a lot of green up there, both literally and figuratively.
Yeah, right.
Thank you, Danny.
Sure.
So we'll continue with 2A and we'll,
Thank you, Mayor.
absolutely. We will move on to Councilman Hawkins.
Well, we have a real quandary here. From my perspective, based on what we just talked about, it appears as though we are being asked by the legislature to shoot ourselves in the foot, if not the head. And our only course to be able to change this seems to be from a legal perspective. How we can influence the Texas legislature, and if we can influence the Texas legislature, seems to be the only opportunity or recourse that we have to try to do anything here. Mayor, you mentioned recently that there was a kind of a consortium of Hill Country mayors that was starting to develop.
I'm gonna give you that information in a minute, the latest.
Yeah, and for me, this whole issue of tax related issues and the politics associated with our city are the two primary reasons I decided to run. Those have always been my two sticking points. So in whatever capacity that I can become involved in trying to help facilitate meetings and discussions with our state elected representatives, I really would like to take the opportunity to do that. I know both of them. I don't know them well, but I have met and spoken with Kerry Isaacs and also with our Donna Campbell, our senator. And I've known both of them for a number of years, even before they were, well, not Donna, but Kerry Isaacs, before she was elected. So it seems incumbent that whatever leverage the city of Bulverde can put on to those elected officials. And even as I mentioned when I was campaigning, one thing that we have not done is we have not given scorecards back to our constituents regarding our elected representatives. And I don't think that they see or feel any pressure from this community. And I think basically to the point that we just talked about the sales tax, the community has really no comprehensive understanding of the dire situation that we're in and how we are just we're on a trajectory to crash land. I don't know when, but eventually I don't see how we're going to be able to, with costs of everything increasing, revenues decreasing, no opportunities for additional revenues. I mean, our flight trajectory looks poor. So I really want to be involved in this in some capacity to the extent that I can try to do something to change this trajectory for our city. That is my biggest issue. I feel like that the taxpayers in Bulverde, of which I'm one, are being asked to pay more. Meanwhile, people that are in the ETJ are not basically paying their full share. They have no desire to become a part of the city. Yet they continue to use our infrastructure, and it just becomes it's a real conundrum for me. I don't have any good answers, but I don't like to think that we're going to go down the drain not swinging. I want to swing, but in whatever capacity I can, in whatever we can do, I want to be involved in these two things. These are my two flashpoints. I'm excited and anxious to do anything I can.
Councilman Watson.
There are three significant things that I think we need to be addressing. I agree with Councilmember Alexander that the comprehensive plan really needs to be looked at. Our original comprehensive plan spoke to specific protections and philosophies around the community and existing neighborhoods, which seem to be wholly stripped out of the new version. And there's a focus on a degree of high intensity commercial activity that, as we see, would be devastating for us from a financial standpoint and an infrastructure standpoint. So the comprehensive plan review is at the top of my list. I also think we need a mechanism to work with developers and business owners in the absence of a relationship with the EDF. There needs to be some way for us to work collaboratively with people who want to work collaboratively with the city. And I don't know what that would look like. I understand all of the reasons why we have established processes and why we stick to those processes. Very good reasons not to expose ourselves legally. But I feel like it puts us in kind of between a rock and a hard place if we can't find a way to engage meaningfully with those two constituencies. I think we have a reputation currently as being hostile to business, which is not, in fact, the truth. And so finding a way to carve out meaningful engagement there is also on my list. Last but not least, I think we really need, as Councilmember Hawkins said, to find a way to engage legislatively, not only at the state level, but at the county level. I feel like there are opportunities for the county to put in place some protections for municipalities like ours that they've maybe not considered or not been willing to undertake. And I feel like establishing good relationships there would also be useful, not just at the state level, but also at the county level. So those are my top three.
Councilman Harris.
Yeah, ever since this idea came up, I've never been fully on board with this idea. I'm not in favor of making a dozen different subcommittees to, explore every different aspect of what we do here. I think inevitably stuff with zoning and planning and development, that's always going to come back to staff. I'm worried about the workload on staff, but I do see the value in maybe a committee for gathering legislative updates, maybe even lobbying. A lot of times these senators, some of the most negative things that happen to the city, these senators don't know what they're signing sometimes. So if there's some way we can get involved in that process, I think that'd be good. And to speak on what Francesca said, when we terminated that contract with the EDF, we didn't just lose, what the EDF attracts to the city, we also lost an avenue for business retention. And I've heard from different businesses, the look on the city right now is very anti-business. That's the perspective from the business community. So, other cities, they have EDFs in the city, but 4B money, we don't have 4B money. So I think maybe this could be a possible avenue of exploring business retention. And so I'd say probably a legislative committee and maybe a SWADO EDF business retention subcommittee. But other than that, I don't think we push it too hard because we don't want to get in over our heads and we don't want to overload staff. So, because it could easily come back to staff on some of these things. So, that's all I got.
You got it. Okay. So on Friday, I attended our mayor's meeting. Currently on our list, there are 22 mayors. They start in Sabinal, they go all the way up to Austin, Johnson City, Marble Falls, the 7 cities surrounding Marble Falls that are a lot smaller than what ours are having some major issues there also, right? So what we did is we did a working lunch, and we all came up with ideas of what was most important to our areas, right? And we put these on papers. We stuck them to the wall, and we worked over them, we went over them. we explained them to each other and everybody chimed in about everything that's going on. So I'm gonna read this to y'all so that y'all know. So one of the things that we started out is what was good in the legislature that we really wanted to keep, right? And so it was a vibrant economy for the state, correct? Leave property taxes alone and keep and grow water resources and no income tax, right? Because everybody's really concerned if we will end up with an income tax. Okay. So something that was that they brought that would be new that we would like to see was, and this is more of a municipal adjacent. So somebody brought up school choice, school funding, mental health. But the most important thing on there is they wanted elected TCEQ members, board members. Okay, so where they would be held responsible. They want to see elected TCEQ. The new water, they want uniformity in groundwater conservation districts so that they're stronger. Allow counties to regulate development, and they want money for water infrastructure from the state. Okay. On public safety, the LCRA HydroMet for all rivers. I guess the rivers up north weren't giving sirens in the emergency that rolled out, so some of them do not have sirens. They wanted funding for the emergency sirens in that area. They want to add the PDs to SB 22, okay? And then they want the ESDs to be elected. They want to change the ESD tax policies so cities have the ability to access those funds, okay? In the small cities, they want brackets to the region and that define the hill country. Right now, the brackets do not define the hill country. They go, some of them are mixed and to Austin. So what happens here doesn't apply over here, right? They wanted more invited testimony. Property taxes is a big deal, okay? So they want the regions to make sense. And their biggest thing that what they're gonna go for is they want a COG for the hill country.
So
Okay,
they want what?
a COG for the hill country, okay? We don't have one. It's very, it would be really nice if we had that. They are very all opposed to the data centers, okay? They talked about property tax elimination, the state government recruiting corps, and promoting the hill country. And we need to unite, so we're all about that. The city of Georgetown did a flash vote that we want to look in, and we also are going to talk to TML. The consortium there was that TML was not representing us the way they should be, to where it benefits the hill country. So they want to bring them in to have that conversation, right? New funding, grants for the smaller cities, and surplus for infrastructure. Big thing, disannexation. They want the auto ETJ removal in the ETJ rules and the ETJ disannexation process looked at. State overreach. They want centralized power, this is just something that needs to go, right? Which is centralized power, the super preemption, zoning and use regulation at state level, and overreach from state agencies, and unfunded mandates. Okay, so this is something that we, as the mayors, want to unite and work together. Mayor Fisher from Johnson City is currently, she spent 7 days, a week ago, 2 weeks ago, up in Austin. She met with everybody. She's doing this together, letting them know that we're going to do this together and we're going to come together. What we found was last year there were 3 mayors that went at different time, or during last legislature, there were 3 mayors that went at different time. Do you know when they put them to speak? At midnight. Okay, at midnight, because it was one person that didn't represent a large election group, and it wasn't going to hurt to stick them in at midnight. By the time they got to speak, they said there was like 8 people left in the whole room, and it didn't make any sense. We know now that 17 or 18 of us mayors walking in together, showing up together, and fighting together for these items, and we're going to figure out which ones and how we're going to lead them up. Will be a whole different look because it does represent a large election population, right? So this is something that we're looking at as mayors, and it's there. We want to include our city councils. We're gonna see how that's gonna look like. I volunteered to see if we can have the meeting here in 30 at the next meeting, so that we can have, then we can attend. You would be able to attend for that. And, see where we're gonna go from there. So we're gonna move these meetings up and make them emergent now. We will not be meeting 4 times a year. We're not gonna be adding in extra meetings as needed. So our next meeting will be in August, just because there's a bunch of people that are gonna be on vacation in July. We don't have a date for that yet, but that's what we're working towards, or looking at as a group of mayors for the Hill Country, right? I foresee that if it is in August, they'll probably have a TML member there. Donna Campbell's office and Carrie Isaacs have both been to these meetings. They know what's coming. They're talking. Everybody's making those phone calls. And what we want to do is to be able to develop to where Bulverde isn't left alone. Johnson City isn't left alone. Blanco, oh my God, Blanco has, in case y'all didn't know, Blanco has a new quarry coming in on this side of Blanco that they weren't able to stop, and it's getting put in there. And we all looked at each other and said, okay, so who are they going to service? They'll be coming down the roads because they're going to go to the cement plant, right? So, something we need to know. Are we going to have those trucks driving down 281 through 1863? Different things. But these meetings are good about that because we're finding out that a lot of us have stuff that are happening in our cities that affect each other, right? I don't know how, or what I would like to see is, yes, these items are important to all of us, but we also need to have a local group here that's working on those so that we can take that information up when we get to that point. And, and you're part of that discussion. Somebody from the committee can go to these meetings as they start getting, deeper and deeper, and we start moving. But, I think that we really need that. We need some voice out there. As we're, think of it this way. By the time our population grows and all our developments get built, right, we will be able to elect anybody in Comal County. Our city will elect whoever wins, whatever wins in Comal County, right? We will be the biggest election population, right? And we vote. We know we vote. It's something we need to start being. And I think the legislature needs to understand that too. That there is going to be a very large population here that is going to vote, and they need to start listening to us. And to know where we're going to be and where we're going with the new laws that they have put in place, which do not benefit us in any way, shape, or form. We need to figure out how to work with the ESDs. I don't know what that's going to look like. I mean, at least we're talking now, where we weren't talking before, but we need to figure out a way to get our tax funds.
May I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Has there been discussion about conversations with the library district?
We have,
Because I'm
with you.
Like, right?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
And their library does not at this point want to give up anything, but there's 2 towns that are the same that we are, and we talked after the meeting outside in the parking lot, and it's not added to this list, but it's something that we were looking at. The 3 of us went, well, they don't have libraries, we have a library.
I mean, I feel like the ESDs provide an essential service that we are not equipped to provide as a city.
Correct.
And so I would be reluctant to hit them up first. And I have nothing against libraries. I think a vibrant library district is important and good and right.
They have a big piece.
They have a disproportionate piece in my view. And they've got private funding elsewhere. And so I feel like that should be our first stop.
Well, the ESD isn't like Bulverde just going to the ESD. This is the group, right? Because there's only 3 cities that the library actually affects. The ESD affects all of them, right? So it becomes a priority by majority, right? But the 3 of us that did have libraries did discuss that. And so we're going to figure out how we can do this in the next meeting and, add that to our list of priorities that are, even if it's just, could be something that we could work into the rest of this. So that's where we're at. But that's, this is what those meetings are about. And they are united. And we will be working together. It's not going to be, I think the time has passed that one mayor is going to get stuck out there and be fighting for their town without somebody supporting.
Well, the good thing is that ties in like the legislation almost as well.
Absolutely.
I think that's the committee that
That's
handles
like
that.
a committee
Yeah,
right there. They kind of, they go hand in hand a little, because you're trying to accomplish something that you need, from the state and local, so it's actually a pretty good fit.
And they're sending out emails, like we got emails today on a bunch of legislatures updates. So they're passing that information along to us to where we can read it and we're attuned to what's going on. Things that we may not know or they get lost, in everyday business in Austin, capital. But they're going to keep trying to pass it. So, we can have a legislative committee locally that's looking at things too. We bring it to this meeting also. It's not a bad idea.
Things in particular.
Yes.
A good example of that would be, I was driving into work this morning, listening to 1200, and on it, they had some quotes from the governor who was saying, he's out there holding town hall meetings. And his quote from this morning was, I have yet to have anyone come up to me at any of these meetings and say that they're happy with their property taxes the way they are. Not once in the state of Texas. So this is where that group, in theory, could attend these meetings and say, we may not be exactly happy with our property taxes the way they are, but we sure as hell aren't happy with what you want to do to property taxes. And I think that's the opportunity, because he was very certain in that statement, and I know how these meetings go, and it is exactly slanted one way and one way only. Nobody's going to show up at these and say, we want more property taxes. I'm not saying that.
Everybody
Either.
wants to pay less. Yeah.
But we certainly don't want to make things worse. And that's the counter to the governor's statement.
I think
It's a knowledge issue.
that one of the big issues now that y'all have seen the sales tax, and this is going to go into your little bit of your economic development. We don't have any place to seek any economic development right
I was
now.
talking about business retention, not development.
And it's, it's one of those things that we're going to have to fight for what we got, where we're at.
We also don't want people
And
leaving.
so, we need to, figure out how we're going to fight the state on keeping what we got on our property.
You're gonna need a whole lot more.
And today, today, they started sending out school vouchers and how that's going to function. I don't think they all know how it's going to function yet. But they sent out some of those monies today, and they mentioned that they're not sure how some of it's going to work. But that'll be another interesting thing to see, what happens on that scale, because I guess the kids that are homeschooled, you've got a bigger amount than some of the others, and I'm not sure how it's going to. That isn't a law that's been passed, but it will affect certain areas too. We'll just need to look. Okay. Mike had a good story yesterday about the truck. We talk about people who live in our ETJ, that they use our infrastructure. There's a comment a minute ago, right? Mike had a comment about we had a truck driver who they live in the ETJ, but they got stopped for a no through truck area and got a ticket. Or got a warning. They got, but they were very upset that they even got stopped. Well, this is how I come, because if not, I have to go all the way around the other side, sending letters to the city, making calls, whatever they were doing to complain, taking up time, but they're not a city, they're not a city resident, right? And so they were upset about that. And I think Mike responded to that.
Well, Lieutenant Byrd responded. I was in his office when he responded to that phone call. He has a good manner about him, and I think he calmed the situation down. It was interesting to hear the resident who was adamant that they were a resident of Bulverde, and they lived south of Almond, And I don't know if he was saying that just because he truly believed that he was a resident of Bulverde, or if he believed he was a resident of Greater Bulverde. But this is the very reason and the very thing that we adopted these ordinances to prevent. It's the very purpose of that no through traffic ordinance in one store.
I think at the end of the day, I'm sorry, may I?
Yes.
I think at the end of the day, we have an obligation to make sure that our taxpayers are not footing the bill for infrastructure in the ETJ. We just had an email from somebody who was very confused about, I won't say very confused, concerned about how we reached the decision about the wastewater treatment plant, and the concern that they were not able to vote for us, and why hadn't we, whatever. And I think the answer has to be on some level, we're sorry that the rate has to go up, but it's got to pay for itself, because otherwise taxpayers in Bulverde are subsidizing that service to you, which you otherwise provide no financial support for. So, it's a fine needle to thread. Yes, we're obligated to provide the service, but we've got to find a way to pay for that.
Remind me, what was the last increase in the rate over there?
Never.
Never, right? It's always been the
Correct.
same
This
from the
is
day of
never.
inception. So
100%.
Yeah, this is the first increase
Yes.
since inception.
Yeah.
10 plus years.
Yeah. All of that to say, we have a fiduciary obligation to the people who pay taxes in this
Exactly.
jurisdiction.
we do.
To be good stewards of their tax dollars and to do, the best that we can.
Absolutely.
We also have authority under Texas Local Government Government Code to manage things like density and overcrowding, and making sure that we are ensuring a good quality of life for the people who live here. And so strategically, I would like for us to be having conversations about how we're doing that, so that we're just not reacting. Reactive is part of the job, but proactive should also be part of the job. Thank you for the update on what the mayors are doing. And I think it would be useful to have a legislative committee that could perhaps dovetail with what you're doing, maybe support that effort, research or whatever.
And at the end of the day with that, we need a committee, because we're going to need for our constituents to make those phone calls in together with us. It's going to be one thing that I show up there with 17 other mayors to make a presentation, whichever one of us decides will make that presentation. But at the end of the day, they want to hear from their constituents, right?
100%.
So we need to have a group
Work
here that
their
can
phones.
work their phones and can, hey, we're going after this. Please call, please write the letters. But we also need to be able to educate our community on what the issue actually is, because they hear the issues in different groups that they may belong to, church, meetings, Republicans, Democrats, whatever they belong to, right? And it may not be the correct information, and sometimes things get misconstrued by the time they've been passed down 3 times. So it'd be really nice to have a committee that we are educating, we're pushing, and we're giving the information to this group as much as we can, and to be able to support it. Mike, you have something to say?
I did, Mayor. Just a couple of things. First, is the mayor's group planning for a legislative day in February next year?
They're supposed to have a legislative day where we'll go, all of us will go. I don't know what the dates are. They don't have it set up yet.
And it's a good day for the mayors, but it's also a good day for council members and just people, elected people,
Everybody.
everybody, including key staff members, load up the buses and go.
Yep.
That works out extraordinarily well. And second, from a logistical standpoint, I know you had mentioned, and you don't have the details, about how many people would you expect in August at this event here? And would it be here at City Hall, or would it be a catered event at a restaurant?
We're just gonna do it off-site where there's no cost to the city whatsoever.
So Chihuahua or something.
It'll be some restaurant, and there will be somebody who pays for it.
Okay.
They have a list of people that want to pay
How
for
much
these
space
meetings.
do you need?
It'll depend on how many RSVP, where we're at. We've used restaurants in Johnson City. We used a large restaurant in Dripping Springs.
I don't know how big your group is, but the bakery is available if you have a place to meet.
That may be a little too small for everybody to
Just
fit,
none of
but
it,
yeah,
so
thank you.
Yep.
And then we have, like we said, we have a list of different companies that would like to
20, 30 people, 50?
probably about 35 people, more or less. But if we include, depending what happens, if, everybody decides they're gonna bring 3 people with them from their council or, well, they can only bring 2 basically, but, however that works, then we might have to
It's a lot of chicken fried steak again.
add. Yeah.
So during lunch.
But yeah, but anyway, I want to have the opportunity to have yours. Because it's a long drive sometimes when you're driving to Johnson City or to Dripping Springs or to wherever, Saginaw. The mayor of Saginaw, of all things, he was elected the youngest mayor ever in Texas. He's also a border patrol agent. And to hear his perspective of what's happening in his city and to hear things that are going on, we don't have all those things going on in our city, but it is important that all of us back him anyway, right? And that was a big consensus in that room, so it felt really nice to know that no matter where you are, what's going on, if you bring it up and you say we need help, it looks like everybody's going to back each other, so it's kind of nice. Okay, so moving on. So for me, I would like for us to have a local legislative community that knows what's going on, that's in tune to the groups that meet here in Bulverde. They're hearing what's going on, that, and it could be somebody who's very, we'll have a chair of that group and 2 members on there, right? And by all means, it's going to be a mix and match. Everybody ends up on a different committee, but I think the legislature is a big one, and to really understand what affects Bulverde, right? It's a big deal, and we can't get left out there in the dark again, right? I think the county, we have a different relationship with the county now, but we're going to have to walk a fine line to continue to keep that and to make sure that we don't get lost in all the new shuffle. There's a new mayor in New Braunfels. There's going to be a lot of new things going on. So we invited the new mayor from New Braunfels. They could not come that day, but promised that they would be at the next meeting. So, now you're getting, we have San Marcos, we have Buda, we have Kyle, everybody, all these small communities over. So, but on the other hand, we're going to really have to work with the county. And I think we need to really make a list. What's important? What's the most important thing that we want from the county? And how are we going to manage to get that? I think that they are trying to fix the ETJ.
There are
And-
changes to subdivision. Those were
Yeah,
the right direction.
I went to that meeting, and I think they really figured out that they need to up it. They have some issues. They're trying to work all their roads. They have 80,000 miles of road, and they're trying to get them all done. But knowing that some of the things that are going on in their ETJ, they need to reduce it. And they're also against the time crunch on water. They're getting hit about the water. That same day when I was in court, they had the water company came in and they were trying to disallow 2 properties from an HOA that was designated a neighborhood. It got turned down, but they also understand that there's a water issue. So, and there's some water money that they got, right? There's some water for infrastructure money for water infrastructure.
Do you see any information about the water availability?
They have, no, it's not out. Today, we got from Texas Water Company that they put out their resident consumer confidence for their customers and residents in their service area. They put that out today. It is not. We got the other one. We got the one from Texas Water Supply. Is that what it's called? Texas Water Supply?
Texas Water Utility.
Yeah, the smaller one. We got that one. That one's out. That one's ready to go. But theirs is not. They sent it. They got some questions and they got it. And they sent it back. So we're waiting. But we do get a small one, and it's not a lot. There we are. The question will be, they talked about the wells that we bring in online, that will produce as much water out of those wells that we are actually taking out Canyon.
Mm-hmm.
So
that's what they want to do.
So we're looking at that too, right?
I'm sorry, tell me what you're.
The
Say-
wells,
say-
that- the wells that they refer to, the new wells that they're bringing on.
Yes.
Will produce as much groundwater as they are taking out of surface water out of the lake.
And they got
So
no
basically,
manhole.
we'll double their supply. Okay. So,
They can pump them how hard they want.
yeah, and we have, I mean, you know, we've talked to know that there's businesses in our area that are trying to secure water with another company that's out there, a smaller company, and have it piped in and use eminent domain. So,
Groundwater.
you know, it's going to be, it's something that we've got to continue to look at. We've got to be on top. We can't let it slide anymore to where we're, you know, so
Do you feel
in
like
my
that's-
words, I would like to see an infrastructure committee, somebody who's actually looking at the water at CPS, you know, and standing on top of all of that, if something's coming up, that we're not reacting because all of a sudden they show up at city door,
Well,
you know?
But the groundwater conservation district can't do anything about those wells because they predate the groundwater conservation
Correct.
district.
So, and now there's this new law about groundwater that you own your groundwater. You can pretty much do whatever you want, and that happened after that petroleum, you know. They were taking the water out of there and they were reselling it, and they told them they couldn't, it belonged to the owner of the property. So, yeah, and we need to stay on top of what's going on there. But, you know, I'd like to see an infrastructure, like to see a legislator to start. And infrastructure looks, you know, CPS, you know, they have meetings that we can attend. You have CPS, and like I said, they're doing the drones right now, reviewing all the electrical poles. You know, it's looking at our water and looking at our roads and what's happening. It's important for our future. It's gonna be a lot of money spent. So I don't know what y'all's thought is, but I have those are my big two. You know, and then, you know, just we've got to keep the door open to all our governmental officials. I don't care if it's Comal ISD, you know, county, whoever, you know, local entities, other mayors, San Antonio's, what's going on in San Antonio, what's going on with the chamber in San Antonio, or, you know, because they're talking about putting all this stuff out here in Comal Mine. So we have a meeting in August that they set up to actually update us.
Do you see that as being part of a legislative committee engagement?
Our governmental affairs.
Maybe we call it a governmental affairs committee as opposed to just legislative.
Well, the legislative has to be somebody though that's who's getting the information from the residents and who's actually kind of paying attention to the legislative stuff. Then you have your governmental over here, which is actually dealing with all and attending all those meetings. Because if not, it's gonna be a
So
lot.
you're talking about two different committees.
So an infrastructure, right? And then
Well, so government affairs, a legislative.
Yeah.
Infrastructure.
and then you talked about, you wanna look at the comp plan, you said?
I think it's really important.
Comprehensive plan, list a lot of things too that we should be looking at.
Well, I think that's gonna go into with a lot of stuff that's going on, and that you have to make those recommendations, you know, to council saying, hey, you know, this goes with, we're having this issue, this doesn't match, can we work on making a recommendation to change it?
But I think the first pass is, what were the, I mean, for me, what were the things in the original plan that got left out that really have changed, in my view, the mission or the focus?
When are we supposed to look at that again? It's every 5 years, right?
You
So
can-
we looked at it 2 years ago?
Last year, we
Last year.
voted it in last year. Here's why I'm concerned. There were some things, for lack of a better word, I'll say that they got left out. And I circled back to people who were on council at that time and specifically said, hey, was this an intentional, I mean, they went through quite a lengthy process. And every single person I spoke to said, no, we never discussed that.
It all got screwed up. What council wanted is different than what ended up.
100%. And so I really feel like we don't need to go through a whole re-engineering. We don't need to spend the money, I think, on a whole re-engineering plan. But I do think it's important that we review that and identify the things that need to be addressed. And come up
So
with a plan.
does that include, let me ask this, does that include community involvement?
I don't think it has to initially. I think it really is a matter of, because there's a lot of information there.
Mhm.
I think it involves bringing it back to council and saying, these are the areas that we really need to look at. And then, I don't know, Mike, you have to tell us what the process is, making the changes to it. I don't know legally what is involved in that. Do we have to do public hearings to make changes? I know it's meant to be a living document.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it said, it's clear that it's a living document,
Yeah.
to be updated at any point.
Yeah.
So,
I think it just needs to
Yeah.
come to council. I think,
yeah, right. I
we
mean,
could
council,
have a
that's-
town hall or a public hearing
Right.
or something if we wanted to do it. But I think at the end of the day, we need to start with identifying
start here,
things.
yeah.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's look at this, then we're gonna do this on the legislative and infrastructure,
Well, I mean, if I
Okay.
may, Mayor,
infrastructure, just, let me just write this down. Infrastructure and the top.
Government affairs.
Which I mean, you don't have
Yes.
to go, you can go to
Oh,
a meeting.
wait a minute,
so I think some of the point of the subcommittee would be to at some point to involve the community and get their feedback too, right?
absolutely.
We'll need it in the comprehensive plan, and then we'll need it in the government affairs plan too, because we need to know what we're kind of advocating for, right? And what we want to do as a whole. So, I mean, I think regardless of what committee it is, at some point we do got to bring in members, or maybe they're part of the subcommittee. That'd be almost ideal if we could do that. That we could find
Sure,
interested members.
community, sure.
Right, like, almost, that's kind of what it is, where we can get a community member that's interested in that as well. Be a strong link to help us.
Okay, so the definition of a governance committee, just so you know, this is just basic. You can add to it or whatever. Governance committees shall be responsible for proposing, reviewing, and referring new policy initiatives to staff or other city council committees for action. This committee shall also provide initial oversight of the city's intergovernmental affairs, including state and federal legislative policy development, lobbying activities, and the promotion of interagency cooperation. Governance also considers policy recommendations, and as well as appoints to certain boards. So subcommittees can be created to accommodate the full committee's charge there, right? So you can have a government, a governance committee, and then you
Do we
can,
need a governance committee?
well, that's what it would be called, not a government committee.
No, government affairs is what I thought. Is that different than a governance?
Yeah, you would probably just leave it as a governance.
Governance seems like a,
I
that's a
know.
whole other layer of.
I know, but that's
I mean,
what they
sometimes
call
I
it.
want to call this a committee.
I mean, that sounds like a committee over committees. I don't know that we need that.
Well, this one's,
Personal.
where I was going on this, it's the intergovernmental affairs, initial oversight of cities' intergovernmental affairs, including state and federal legislative policy development. So,
Is that the same thing as the legislative committee?
well, yes. So that's why we say we would take that legislative off there and call it a governance committee. And we make the definition of what it does, right? The committee does. The committee will have to develop that in their first meeting. Right, and have it proposed out, right?
Do we have one,
No, we're talking about three.
I mean, for
Yeah, but for
legislative.
legislative, not for one.
Yeah, and then you have your one for your infrastructure.
Yeah.
Right, and then you have your one for your comp plan.
I mean, my thoughts, I think it's a great start.
I think so too.
I think it's a great start. And, the
Infrastructure,
consensus seems like we're in that direction, so that's good. Now it's a matter of what we do with it next, right? And how that looks.
And I
I'll
think
be
a lot of the
working
legislation.
with a request for an administrative assistant.
yeah, I can imagine.
So on the legislative committee.
We
I believe it.
we told you up front that was on the table.
Yeah, and we've been cruising along fine without one, but if we're gonna have 4 or 5 committees,
No, we're
and
having
we're talking
three or
about
more.
meeting with the public,
You're gonna need us help, yeah.
So
that's
the
beyond
big
our
one-
capability.
Understood.
The big one's gonna be the comp plan, right? Infrastructure is pretty much just working, we have a rep from CPS, we have a rep from Pertnells, we have a rep from Texas Water Company, You know, maybe that committee, somebody off that committee wants to actually attend those meetings that we've been invited to
Yes.
that have not been attending, correct? So that would be like your infrastructure part of it, right? And if you have something else to add to it, by all means, that could be.
Text dot, have a conversation, be those, the text dot meetings, all that.
Yeah, text on me updates, yeah,
But
and,
I don't-
so it's
I don't
all a
think
matter
that-
of you creating it. And, that committee will create their definition of exactly how to.
I don't
So-
think you need a whole committee just to attend meetings. I mean,
No,
I think
it's not a
gotta be more
committee to
involved than that.
Yes,
I mean, you can do that on your own.
So here's what I'm envisioning. These are just my thoughts for what it's worth, right? If we have 2 or 3 people whose responsibility it is to get their arms around a pot of things, then they come back every month and make a report to council and
and
keep
a
us-
recommendation.
and a recommendation. This is the update on the latest that's happening, and I really think we need to talk about X and Y, right? So that we're not all trying to be subject matter experts on all the things, because we've all got full-time
You
jobs.
do your, all of it, these committees are to bring initial and find out what's going on.
100%, and
Bring
bring
it together.
recommendations.
Bring, you know, don't just bring the problem, bring an idea of how we can fix it,
100%.
and then we'll work on what the process would be, right?
So
And
what
to
are-
be clear, none of these committees are authorized to take action on behalf of council. No.
So what about the committee that reaches out to the business community? Does
Yeah.
EDF work?
Well, I don't know if you want to stick that in there right now. You want to see how this is going to go for the beginning to start for these top 3?
Well, I think that's
And then-
important. I mean, those are our
We're
friends
not
and neighbors.
saying,
that
we're
live
not
here.
saying that they're not important. I'm just
I
saying
know,
that we
but I'm
can't
just saying.
have 4 or 5 committees. We can start with 3. We're small, we're learning.
Well, I didn't want
Let's
5,
start with 3 and go from there.
probably more than I want.
I would have to say that I understand the importance of limiting this, but I agree with Councilmember Kraywitz that engaging with the local business community,
I mean, go
So
talk
you
to
do
the business
understand-
owners.
so you do
It's an important
understand
problem
that-
right
So you do understand that each council member will be like on 2 or 3 committees.
understood.
So
now.
if we spread it out that way.
But this is a serious problem that needs to be addressed.
What's the seriousness of it?
I
The
think-
business community thinks that the city's out for them. They think we don't have their back. There's a negative connotation that goes between city and business right now. I've heard it from dozens of business owners in the city.
I mean, I see what you're saying, but, you know, I mean, I don't know that we've ever been negative to, it, you know?
I know, but it's the perspective of getting rid of the thing that supports business and then not filling the void that's left when there's needs for things that they did. So,
If you're talking about the EDF, we all know why that happened.
I know, but I'm saying
Yeah, I mean,
it's, like I said back then, when that originally came to council, the needs of the EDF have changed as the city's changed. And there's good things that the EDF did do, like retention and reaching out to businesses and being a source for the business to come to in the city, which they feel right now that they can't reach out to the city. And so, I mean, there's a need for this type of thing, and it's not getting fulfilled right now. So,
but, I mean, look, I mean, we can discuss that later, but
yeah, it's
I
just their
don't see why they
perspective.
can't reach out to the city. I mean, that's perfectly okay.
Because the
They-
message, what we've said to them is, we have processes and you must follow the process, and we will not speak to you outside of that process.
And I've heard
And
from
I-
a
and
couple
I-
of business owners, they have tried to reach out and they get turned away. So I don't know
To
what's
be
going on
clear,
Who
there.
are they reaching out
I-
to? That they're getting turned away.
I don't know.
To be clear, there are valid reasons why we stick to the process. I get it, right? We cannot take any step that looks like we're acting inequitably towards one business owner or one developer applicant than we are any other. I understand all of the reasons of that. But if we are not going to undertake a relationship with the EDF, and I'll say again plainly, I said this last year, EDF was not representing the city's interests.
Mm-mm.
They did not bring us a single project, as far as I know, that was in line with what the city said they wanted. So just to be clear, I'm not advocating,
Mhm.
I'm not suggesting that we didn't make the right call last year.
Yeah, I'm not.
What I
fighting for
am
the
saying
EDF.
is that we do not have a mechanism in place for businesses and developers to come and work with us collaboratively. What we've
Exactly.
said is, here's our process, and you have to follow it, and that's the end of it. We've got to figure out another way. I don't know what that answer is, but most especially because we've got these sales tax issues to be concerned about, retaining businesses here and maintaining good relationships with those businesses,
Most important.
absolutely essential.
So somebody could stick it into their business and infrastructure.
Yeah, the
They
way I
wanna
look
do
at it, that could fall under the comprehensive plan. That falls under comprehensive plan. I mean, that's a branch of it, but I mean, because it involves business, it involves your local business, it involves our local, what we want to do, you know,
That
downtown
makes sense.
initiatives,
That makes sense.
you know,
Yeah.
faith.
You can add it to that one.
So, I mean, that's why I get confused, like, we're talking specific because of the EDF, I mean, that's, you know, we all know that's a whole other subject, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if it's a business thing, then that to me is a comprehensive plan that we could take
Yeah.
and, you know,
Yeah.
work.
To
it
do
in.
this-
Right, right, I don't have an issue with that. I mean,
I'm not
I'm
defending.
just trying to make sure I understand.
Yeah.
Here's my thought, guys. We all know what happened with the EDF and why, you know, but we also have a duty to our constituents to tell them where the taxpayer money goes, and they
100%.
cannot tell us where that is.
100%.
A year has gone by, they have chosen not to respond to us in any way, shape, or form. They have produced no accounting to us for any of those funds.
Yeah.
Right?
Understood.
So for me, I'm a taxpayer.
I'm
gonna
not
be-
arguing in favor of.
So, but
I think
That's not what I'm
let me finish. But at the same time, you know, I understand that we need to take care of our businesses and we need to have that business relationship, correct? And we do. And if that means going out, you know, whoever's gonna go out there and talk to those businesses or whatever, then that's fine, and bring that back to council, that's great, right? But some of us don't actually, you know, work in the city during the day when those businesses are open, correct? Or, you know, are not in the vicinity to do that. I try when I can to go to the ribbon cutting ceremonies. We have a new chamber,
President
Melody,
or executive director. Yeah.
Melody, I can't remember what her last name is. McCollum, maybe? I can't remember what her name is. But anyway, she's coming on. I mean, I think there's gonna be a whole different relationship there that's gonna be something good, you know, to maybe work with and start something new. Rhonda did a great job. She knows everybody, that group knows everybody. That's a good place to start. Do it with the chamber versus somebody who still can't tell us where our money is.
I think it makes sense to fold that into the comp plan committee, because I think that that's all.
It's an aspect that could be easily
100%.
incorporated.
Because I mean, that's what we want to work on. In the
Yeah.
community, so.
So I'm gonna volunteer to be on the comp plan committee, because that's kind of at the top of
Me
my
too.
list.
Business retention.
Joe,
Yeah,
yeah.
we have, I mean, that's top on the list too.
Okay.
Okay, so let's figure this out, all right? Obviously, I'm gonna be on the legislature just because I'm doing the mayor thing,
Yeah.
right? And then we can, but I would like Ted to be on the other end of that. Ted, if you would wanna be on that, and then, we'll need a third. When y'all get done here, you can tell me what y'all wanna do that. We need somebody on the infrastructure.
I'll volunteer for the legislature if you decide.
Well, I was gonna, what do you,
It depends on, I mean, we have 2 council members that aren't present, so I don't know how we want to do that too, so.
well.
That means you have to decide what committee.
I know, I get
You're gonna get
You didn't show up, so now you're on this committee. All we're holding for 2 committees.
No, but he's got.
I've been a Rotary Club president twice by that way.
Joe, would you consider being on the infrastructure?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, and
And
you want to be on the
honestly,
comp plan?
Austin.
I'm so sorry. Yes. I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, what committee, Jason? This is-
He's gonna be with
Comp
Francesca and Jason are gonna be on the comp plan and business retention.
And if you need to fill in a response,
Okay, so we have 2. I need somebody else on the infrastructure. I don't,
and Mayor, if I may, the infrastructure has a little tie in the comprehensive plan as well.
yes, it will.
And I'm just thinking that way we're not we're gonna make too many, we don't wanna make too many committees. I think as a whole, we wanna start somewhere. I think by looking at that comprehensive plan, it all ties together to infrastructure, business.
If they're all gonna tie together at some
Well, I
point.
mean, they do, but their legislation and, government is different.
It's a different thing,
Yeah,
yeah.
so that's clearly different where they don't have a part in like a comprehensive, they do in a way, but it's not, immediately impacted, right? You're looking at different aspects. So, I mean, it could.
I
be
think at
more-
least,
I mean, and these aren't committees that I see, I mean, they could go on for.
Oh, yeah, they work forever.
Yeah, exactly. So if we bundle them like that too, I mean, because then we're talking
They're
county,
adults.
we're talking state, there may be federal government.
And that's why you
So,
bring
correct.
your findings and your recommendations to the
Right.
meeting, and then we
So I don't know,
disseminate what's gonna happen to it.
just thinking that
I
maybe.
think we should be careful about putting too many things in one
Correct.
bucket.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
I think at least initially, the comp plan focus should be looking at the document. And I think where it goes from there, once we've kind of nailed that down, there may be some splitting off of things. But I think initially that,
We can
You're
identify.
gonna have to feel it
yeah,
out.
I'd be reluctant to put too much in that bucket. That's gonna be a big lift as it is.
It is.
So I think at least for now, infrastructure should be on its own. And I think water, electric, roads,
Those
all
are
of
big
that
things.
stuff,
Yeah, they are.
that's a big lift
They
too.
are.
Okay, so back to where we were talking, so, I've got myself and Ted on legislative right now, Joe on infrastructure, and Francesca and Jason on
And
the comp plan. Joe, you're gonna be on comp plan too?
Yes.
Oh, no, you gotta be up here on legislative with me, because you're mayor pro tem.
Does that matter?
why does
Because
it
if I'm not there, he would have to.
not for
Fill
a
in
meeting,
for what?
everybody on the committee can still interfere at the meeting, it's not official call, city meeting.
But I would want him to know what's going on.
Well, we should all know what's going on.
Yeah, as opposed to all of us.
Okay, you wanna go on the comp plan? I'll do that one. All right, so, Joe, we're gonna put Mr. Brown
On infrastructure.
on infrastructure.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, Councilmember Brown.
And
You've been assigned.
You wanna do infrastructure too?
Y'all do infrastructure.
well, wait, we still have to put Christopher Goff somewhere.
I'm not sure he's gonna be too enthusiastic to serve on these boards.
Okay, so we'll put you back on,
Infrastructure.
yes, yes.
Yeah, I wanna be.
For Jason.
I definitely wanna be on comp.
Okay, so Jason, you're gonna be on both the infrastructure and the comp plan.
Sounds good.
Joe, you're on both. Y'all are getting Brown on infrastructure and,
Comp.
no, we're just putting Mr. Brown just on infrastructure.
The legislature is the only thing that's open.
Yeah. I'll ask Christopher Goff. We'll go from there. Give him an option to be part of what we're doing. All right, okay, all right, so that's where we are for now, because we can always add a new committee member.
Yeah. I think I might wanna do legislation over,
So,
infrastructure.
So going down the committees, if I can read these out, this is what I have so far on the committees, and I asked Sandra to correct me. For the legislative committee, Mayor Hayes,
Councilman
Council.
Hawkins.
Councilman Hawkins, and potentially Councilmember Goff. For infrastructure, Councilman Alexander, Councilman Brown, and Councilmember Kraywitz. And then for the comp plan, Councilmember Watson, Councilmember Alexander, and Councilmember Kraywitz. Does that square with what everybody's thinking?
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
So first perspective is on your first meeting, you'll need to do a definition in your first meeting. Just a little paragraph like what I just read to y'all, as other governments, I mean, whatever y'all, however y'all are gonna do it. But we'll need of what your definition is gonna be of your for the first meeting, so that we have a definition of what that committee does.
Establishment of it,
Yes.
purpose.
All right. So there we are on there. Does anybody have any other questions or anything? We put a lot here because you can have discussion and possible action regarding strategic planning. So we got that, development of city council priorities, we got that. And the possible creation of the city council subcommittees, we got that. To further review, research, and provide recommendations on complex issues, we got that, right? Upcoming legislative matters, we'll be sharing that. And if there's any other city priorities that y'all want to discuss, now's the time since it's open.
Do we want to make clear that these committees are not authorized to task staff unless or until they bring it back to council? I think we need to be careful that we're not.
Well, I don't think that, you're gonna have to call them and get information from them, okay? You're gonna need information from them. It's different points when you're doing your recommendation or your review or whatever you're going to, whatever the problem is, you're gonna need information for that, and you're gonna need information for your solution. So you're gonna have to talk to them. I don't know if it's tasking them not to be in a meeting, but I mean, you're gonna need information.
Right.
You're going to need it. There's no way around having any of these committees without involving staff.
Councilmember Watson, here's how I'm gonna approach that. This is kind of how I approach it anyway, regardless of committee structures. If the ask is a substantial staff commitment, I'm kicking it upstairs to you guys.
Okay.
You know, I mean, I'm gonna say, look, it's gonna involve dozens of hours perhaps.
Yeah,
And
That's
if it's,
my concern.
if it's that large of an ask, then you know what, I wanna know from the balance of council that this is something you wanna do. And given that, I also wanna staff it and see what resources it's gonna take for me to meet that request.
But again, the committee is,
It's a judgment call.
the committee is a working committee. Okay, it's not a tasking committee.
Right.
So let's just say that, I'm just gonna use this for example, Ted and I need to know something about SB, let's just say SB 22, right? Not that I don't know what to do. Let's just say that we need some information, and how it affects them. The one who needs to be putting that information together is us writing it up, not staff. They can
Right.
give us tidbits that we may need, that maybe, hey, under A, it says this, how does that reflect on this? Something that they can answer, in a paragraph, or, not be too complex. Now, with Danny, he knows where all the dead bodies are, so that may be a little bit bigger. He's been around so long that, it may take a little bit longer to get, because it may be, 3 different parts that he's going to give to you. But, I don't foresee us tasking somebody and saying, hey, Sharon, we would need a breakdown, of this budget, and it's gonna take her 3 days. No, she can give you the information, we put it together. Ready?
but it's
So,
still gonna involve staff, and there's gotta be some mechanism of checks and balance to make sure we're not overloading everybody.
well, like I said, it should be a question that can be answered in a paragraph or pretty quick. It's to put together your information that you will be presenting in your committees.
I think we ought to just be tactical in how we set that up, right? So that we're prepared and we know what we need to ask them.
Yes,
That way
absolutely.
we give them time to come to give us an answer. So we're
Yeah,
not saying,
I mean-
hey, can you tell me what about
Don't be
this?
too broad,
You gotta be mindful of their time.
Right.
right? So you don't want to ask something broad that's going to take 5 hours. Something that
way
can be
we're not-
answered in a paragraph.
I mean, this is, baby steps, right? I mean, we've never had subcommittees. We've never looked into it in this
And
this
Just the
magnitude.
facts.
How do we
This-
get here?
And if this turns out not to be a good thing, we reserve the right to revisit
100%.
this and make adjustments or get rid of it altogether.
These are not standing committees. We are not establishing standing
No.
committees, right? These are ad hoc committees that will serve for a particular purpose. And right now, we're just kind of getting our arms around what that purpose is going to be. To the mayor's point about writing a definition. What is our purpose?
Mayor, I'm
What is
gonna
your purpose?
throw something out
Yes.
for consideration, and I'm volunteering for this. It sounds like we need perhaps at the highest possible order some operating guidelines.
Mhm.
that are
Yeah.
agreed upon by council. And they'll be very broad. These are broad brushstrokes. But just some operating guidelines that we can present to council. I don't even know that it needs a formal vote per se, but just something that
Well,
you
can we
mentioned
please
several tonight.
just make sure you put yourself as the bus driver the day we go to Austin, and you're supplying the margarita machine.
I have done that before.
Doesn't surprise me. Anyway, that's important.
I had a margarita machine in my dissertation defense, I'll have you know.
This is getting better, okay.
Yeah, we got a volunteer for that.
For a sec.
All right, so we're there, all right? And then, so this is what we had to discuss tonight, and y'all feel comfortable with where we're at. Mike can just give us some overview, like I said, of all of us, just to look at it. And you, when you write your definition, something you think about when you write your definition of your committee. And it's not to say that you won't maybe be moved over to another committee, or, you know, if you know something or whatever, that can happen too, or get appointed to another committee. But that's where we're gonna start for now.
So I had a question.
Yes.
We had said that we were gonna defer further discussion on the CIP until this meeting, so that we could all kind of sit and sort of think about how these fit in with the other things we want to bring
We
forward.
can, with this, I can discuss CIP with this broad 2A, right? Just want to make sure. Yes, because that's what I thought Sandra said.
Sandra's not.
Just making sure she's nodding. She's saying yes.
Sounds good.
Okay, you got 5 minutes.
City priorities.
Yes, city priority, she put city priorities, other city priorities. Okay.
So I just wanted to mention that, not that I have anything profound to say about it, but just to bring that back up, we had talked about.
I thought we were doing that on the 20, or on the next, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't think we were.
I honestly did thought, I thought we were doing it on the
I
30th.
thought we said last week we were gonna talk about this in the context of the committees. Were there things on the CIP?
Okay.
Yes,
That
that
maybe
should
should
be
be kept
added to the committees. Yes, we did
Okay.
say that.
Okay.
So on there, though, the majority of those that are on there is infrastructure items.
I think that's true.
But those park items that are in there may fall under your comprehensive plan. So, you know, those two groups probably want to look at that in their future and kind of see how that all relates.
So do we wanna say tentatively,
Mm-hmm.
CIP 006 and 007 are part of the comp plan discussion unless they're reassigned elsewhere?
Yes.
Can you repeat the name of those?
Yes, sure. It's the Parks Capital Improvements Plan, Phase 1, and the 10-acre property master plan and initial improvements would be part of the comp plan conversation.
Right.
And then the others, there's the wastewater utility, facilities planning, roadway transportation, public works facilities,
That's all
and roadway parking. That's all infrastructure.
Right.
Okay, so for the purposes of looking ahead into the CIP, those respective committees will research those for at least the initial part of the discussion.
Sounds reasonable.
Does that
Yep.
seem reasonable?
Absolutely. Hey, and so, like,
I'm
on the
confused.
infrastructure,
What research are the committees gonna do with regard to these CIP items?
They'll lead the discussion on behalf of council when it comes back around to have the conversation about these items. So the comp plan committee will take into consideration these CIP items in the larger context of the comp plan.
So are we going to adopt a CIP that includes this, or are we gonna wait for that committee input and then adopt a CIP?
So we have to adopt the CIP plan. That's the ideal way to do it, right?
but we can leave some of these items off the CIP plan and add.
Well,
I'm gonna leave all of them at that point, because we've just identified infrastructure and comp plan.
But we can have a CIP plan and add throughout the year. It doesn't need to be just added at the beginning of the year. So you can add it in any agenda.
You
Right.
can add it, delete as you go through, but it starts to lose focus.
right.
Well, that's what I said, when we want to add them to where they're not going to lose focus, and you're not going to pull them off, but be sure about, you know, the committees.
So I'm sorry,
presenting.
maybe I don't understand I thought the next round of conversations about the CIP were gonna be to discuss these items in detail. Is
And
that
add
not?
items as needed.
Okay, So,
Yes, and
So-
prioritize.
and
Yes.
prioritize. And so I guess my thinking was if we're gonna have a parks capital improvement phase one, that's part of a larger conversation. And as we are triaging things, the comp plan committee, and this is just as an example, may come back and say, yeah, we feel like maybe this is not something we wanna put in the CIP this year. Because
Pros, plans,
whatever,
pros,
right?
cons, yeah.
Because I think we just don't know yet.
Well,
Right.
and maybe we're looking at it
Or
wrong.
maybe I'm misunderstanding.
Maybe we adopt the plan and then we review it to see how we.
As part of the committee work.
Right, as part of the committee, because I mean, we still have to get input from the community as well for some of those plans. I mean, that's ideally what a CIP should do, right? So you say, this is what we wanna work on. Now we have subcommittees to help see if we can accomplish it.
You have subcommittees to serve as a sounding board.
Right. And then do you, at that point, now we have funds or a mechanism?
I was gonna say, if we adopt it, do we have to fund it?
No,
So we can adopt the plan.
Congress does it every, yeah.
Yeah. We may have all the items not have anybody after legislature, so for the next 5 years, so.
No, you don't. Now, what I will ask for is, once we figure out, I mean, right now, a lot of this is just study. And it goes to Clint Hayes is in the far corner saying, I'm tired of doing studies.
Yeah, right,
But we're
sure.
gonna do a study. And that will help us to determine what the hardwired cost is, what the hardware cost is, on these projects. So we've talked about intersection improvements. That's one of them up there as an example. That's a $75,000 study, whatever that number is. Okay, great. Now we're gonna come back and say, okay, let's get a more reliable number and identify the priorities. That's where we would work with the committee to identify priorities. We'll get the numbers for these and then come back and present that
That makes
to
sense,
council.
yes, that makes sense, okay.
So it's just kind of outlining the CIP. right?
Yes,
And
yes,
then the
yes.
subcommittees will see it through, hopefully, in the phase of implementing it.
And pretty much they'll come to Mike or myself and say, hey, we're ready for this to be put on an agenda, and we'll look at it and get it on an agenda, on a future agenda
Yeah.
where it fits, right? So,
Yeah, I'm still looking for council to prioritize the list as a whole,
yes,
and then also any additions or deletions.
On the CIP, the proposed CIP, there was no proposed funding identified though, right?
Well, there's estimated cost, which is why I was
No.
asking the
Like
question.
bond or,
No, sir.
Right, so
That's
that's,
not- no.
that's the other side of the CIP is.
I'm
do
gonna
we-
go
but then
back
we
to-
can get into that part in the budget meeting,
Right,
okay?
Yeah.
So we can talk monies in the
Yeah,
budget
we still need to talk.
In the budget meeting, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, so we're good on that. Questions? All right, anything anybody else want? I have no public comments tonight, we have nobody here that signed up for public. So if there's nothing else, I can adjourn this
We're
meeting,
adjourned.
and we will adjourn this meeting at 7:52. Thank you.
Zero.
I got it right here.
Well, you jinxed it.
1-0.
It's like the Spurs are jinxing it. The less